Hi everybody, we're going to do an API tutorial. What is an API? It's called an Application Programming Interface. It's an interface that defines interactions between multiple software intermediaries and applications. The specific type of API we're going to work on is called a Web API. And in our case, this assignment is one cool cat, actually Meow Facts. One of the ways that information is transferred between systems is something called JSON, J-S-O-N, JavaScript Object Notation. Yeah, that's what it is. So the client makes a request. The request hits the web server, which then hits the server that actually supplies the information. That information comes back in a JSON response, which the client then interprets. So we are pulling information from a web server somewhere out on the internet, bringing that JSON information back and interpreting it. Sometimes when you do these, they're free. Sometimes you have to have an API key. Sometimes they're so sophisticated you have to pay money for them. I'm not going to do any money ones in this class. Let's see. Why do we use a web API? Well, if the data changes. For instance, every time we make a call to the API for Meow Facts, we're going to get a different Meow Fact. How boring would it be if we only had the same Meow Fact every time? That would not be really good. Now, one of the things that we want to look at is error codes. 200 means everybody's happy. 400 and above means something went wrong. So there's more explanation here. We're not going to go through that. We are going to go through JSON. It's a text file, in this case, JSON we're looking at. We're going to use JSON for everything. So if you go to this website, which is where our application is hosted, there it is. That is what a JSON response looks like. It shows the data, and it shows when cats grimace, their taste scenting. Okay, so we're going to look at it in a different format when we go to raw data and pretty print. I'm doing this in Firefox, which has this little printy print thing, which shows a couple data structures we haven't learned yet. Curly braces are dictionaries. Brackets, square brackets, are lists. So this is a dictionary with one key. The value is this dictionary. Well, we will get to that in this course. For now, we'll just do it as it's shown. All right. So this does go through what a dictionary is. We can list the number of days and the months of the year. A list is a data structure that refers to multiple elements with one variable. So days refers to 31, 32. It refers to all these guys. If I want to get days 31, I use days bracket 0. December's days bracket 11. So each of these are indexed. A dictionary is indexed by the key. So it's not really indexed. If I push in March, if I do days, January, I'm going to pull out 31. Well, we'll get into this dictionary and all this stuff deeper later on. If you're interested in lists and dictionaries, you might go to YouTube and find some beginning tutorials on lists and dictionaries. We're going to spend some time with them later on. So, one of the things we want to do first is we're going to install a library, which we have not done before. A library is something that expands the functionality of Python. Python doesn't have everything in it that it needs to run. It has just what's called the standard library. So in here we have, for Windows, pip install requests. If you're a Mac, I can't remember how to do Macs. Anyway, to install that, we bring up a command prompt. I'm going to bring up a terminal prompt. You can actually do it from right in here. So I went to Start, CMD, and brought up this command prompt. PIP is the package manager for Python. Install says we're going to install requests. And when you press enter, in my case, it's going to say it already exists because I already have it installed. In your case, it's going to rummage around and do things and download stuff, and then you'll have requests installed on your computer. When we install a module that we want to use, we have to import requests. So now we can use that code. That a library or a module is code that somebody else wrote. It could even be stuff that you wrote. But in this case, this is a third-party open source library that's really good at getting information from the web. Well, we need a URL, Uniform Resource Locator, and here I have the URL. You want to copy that and paste it. Oh yeah, here I have Linux and I have how to do it on a Mac. Hopefully that's right. You have to let me know I don't have a Mac. So I pasted that in here. This is where we're getting our information from. All right, the next step is to use our requests library that we just imported to get. Get is something you do all the time on the web. Every time you go to a web page, you're getting the contents of that web page. So if I go to msn.com, I just got the contents of that web page. It's called get. Get is a very common web HTTP thing to use. So I get the information from this URL, which in our case we know is, what did I do with it? There it is. Meow facts, where'd he go? Anyways, in my history. There it is. We know this is the information we're pulling in. That's the raw data. And here it is in a printy print version. So we're pulling in this text information. Well, let's take a look at what that text information looks like. We are going to print out this response and see what it looks like. So I'm going to do run. In this case, our response is 200. What does that mean? Everybody's happy. So the request library, when it gets something, it gets a response. It says 200, 300, 400. It gets a response code. The part we're looking for, which is the most important, and this library is really handy because it not only gets information from the web, it can convert information in the web to a dictionary, into something we can understand with Python. So this method converts what we're seeing over here. It converts actually this into something Python can understand. Well, let's take a look at what that looks like. There it is. This is our JSON. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to create a new little file, and I'm just going to call it meow.json. So we can take a look at what's in this JSON file. There it is. Whoops, went to the wrong one. Okay. So here's our data. Now, one of the things when things get converted to JSON, when you try to look at the JSON file, you have to change all the single quotes to double quotes. I know that's kind of a pain, but I like to have the JSON file there so I can see what it looks like. I'm going to replace them all. See, it's a lot happier now. Or I could have copied and pasted it from the website too. All right, so here's our dictionary key. There's our list. And there's the end. So how do we get information from here and only print this? We get the data in the dictionary, right? So get is a way to retrieve information. The key is data. The item is this. The item happens to be a list. How many entries do we have in our list? 1. The first entry in every list is 0. So now we just get the information in the list. And I'm looking at the wrong one. There we go. This one I want. And that's how we're able to print this out looking very nicely, just as though it didn't come in this sort of information. Well, there it is. We will do some more complex API tutorials after this, but this is a good one to get started with because it's fairly simple. It'll make more sense as we do dictionaries and lists. And as I mentioned before, if you want to learn more about dictionaries and lists, which we will be using, a good place to go is go to YouTube and find some, beginning tutorials. That would be a good think aloud, or whatever I called it. Oh yeah, I called it Code Gurus. So that would be some good Code Guru things. Find out things about dictionaries and lists.